Welcome back to the Angela Makes podcast. My name is Angela and I am always making. I live just outside Belfast in Northern Ireland. I enjoy knitting, crochet, sewing, cross stitch, and that's only just a few. This podcast will mainly focus on knitting, and it will normally take the format of FOs, whips, and what has been catching my eye or what I would really like to work on. There is a lot of temptation, so I warn you now that it may also tempt you into a few new patterns, but that's what this podcast is all about, showing you what I'm making and showing you different things that you might not have come across. As it will mainly be knitting, what I will do is to hold the crochet to the end or any of the sewing or the cross stitch, and then you can pause, stop watching, or just watch the bits that you like. Hopefully I'll be able to have the little bookmarks in so that you can skip to the bits that you really want to see. I enjoy watching podcasts. Most of them that I watch, I find what I consider to be quite costly yarns all of the time. This doesn't stop me watching them, and in fact I do get quite excited every time I see one of the ones I watch regularly popping up, and I go on there and I follow their podcast and I like and I subscribe. I do treat myself, as you saw in the last podcast, to hand-dyed yarn, and especially, and again as you will have seen in the last podcast, locally hand-dyed yarn. I like to support our local hand dyers here in Northern Ireland. However, I also do like to use economical yarn, especially when I'm knitting jumpers or garments. I find that it allows me to test the pattern and it allows me to see the fit on me or how I would change it the next time. I also seem, the more that I wear 100% wool, I seem to have a slight reaction. So I have also I've always used acrylic yarn, but I do use acrylic yarn in some of my garments in particular, because I find I can wear them all day, I don't get itchy, they are still comfortable, and they wear really well. I do know that there are many reasons not to use acrylic yarn, and I have researched it and I have looked into it, but my choice, and it is personally my choice, so whatever works for you, you do you. But I do use acrylic yarn, and I will show quite a few bits of acrylic yarn throughout the podcast. Within Northern Ireland and within the UK, there is Stylecraft Yarn, which I really like, and they have started to think about how they can be a little more sustainable as a company, and have started recycled yarn, which I showed in the last podcast, and I'll show you again today. There is such a wide variety of colours, and it doesn't itch, it doesn't scratch. So for me, that's one of the most important things. At this stage, I also just want to say thank you so much for the amount of likes and subscribers that I got on episode 1. It absolutely blew me away. I hope that I can continue to interest you, tempt you, and that you will continue to watch this podcast. You will find me on Ravelry, Instagram and Facebook as Angela Makes NI, and I will link everything below in the description. If I forget anything, drop me a message, because the tendency is that I do forget, so please let me know and I will update the information. As I said, episode 1 really encouraged me to keep going. In all honesty, it took me probably about 2 years to get here. My husband and my young daughter are my biggest supporters and enablers when it comes to my craft. If there's anything my daughter is looking for school, it's normally, but Mum, you can make that. They have been so good at encouraging me, and my daughter has been watching the YouTube subscribers and the likes and the watches all week, and she has got so excited too, so thank you, because it has made her week also. And she did say that she needed a mention in episode 2, so she's got her mention, and there may be a couple of other things here. But honestly, thank you so much, and I hope, if nothing else, this podcast continues to inspire you. I think that's all of the admin, so let's get into the podcast today. As I said, what I'm going to start with is finished objects. So I'll get to those now. Just before I go into finished objects, what I'm wearing today isn't a finished object, but I will take you through what I've done. I'm just going to pop on here and check that I have all of the information. So this is the No Frills by Petite Knit. It took quite a while to knit. I treated myself one Christmas, so we have a lovely yarn store here in Belfast, Hank's Yarn Parlour. Casey has just started her own podcast as well, so I'll link it below so that you can pop over and have a listen to her. But I went, not Christmas there, the Christmas before, and I treated myself to Holtzgarn Super Soft and the Titiaka, whatever way you pronounce that. So the Super Soft was in the colourway Space, and the Titiaka was in Galaxy, and I held those double to knit this. I used a size 4mm needle, which is a US 6, and for the ribbing I used a 3mm. I absolutely love this jumper. This is probably one of my most wears. I love the colour of it. I love the fit of it. The sleeves aren't tight, which I like. I don't like really tight sleeves. I love the way it sits up here, and I love the neckline. I don't like a neckline that sits too high or is too tight, so this is absolutely perfect. And I do just really, it's lovely. I absolutely love it. So 100% would recommend the No Frills by Petite Knit. So as I was saying, I do find that 100% wool itches, and this jumper is one of those. So I'm going to have a look at a couple more yarns that I have and see if I can make it in a combination that doesn't itch as much. Because as I say, I love the fit of this, and I'm always wearing it. I can dress it up for work, I can dress it down at the weekend, and it's just perfect. So what have I finished? I had to finish, and I will start with a twin set in pearl as I finished my last episode, but then I have a few other bits and pieces to show you today. I have finished my Criss, and I have finished it because the deadline is today. So I finished it Friday evening, and it is beautiful. I'm going to fold it in half again so that you can see, but you can see the colours from the last one. So this should be released soon. I have done the crosses version, so there's a number of different versions, and then you can create your own by putting the mohair wherever you want. This one was Botanical Yarn, their sock yarn, which was very kindly gifted by Joe and Rachel from Twin Set and Pearl. They have a number of MKALs, and I had joined in the MKAL and added a few of my makes to their Ravelry page, and I was chosen as one of the winners. So thank you so much, Rachel and Joe. And then I used Drops Kid Silk, I think in the cream or ecru colourway. It'll all be on my Ravelry page. And then I used the King Cole Cosmos in their Galaxy. Again, it's on my Ravelry page. For the gold sequins in this, and it is lovely. So if I put this on, if I can get it the right way around. So again, Joe's patterns are this crescent shape, and then it goes to the smaller end. So I haven't put that on very well, have I? And it doesn't really, you can't see it against my No Frills, but it is beautiful. And there's quite a long end here which you could tie in underneath and do lots of things, but it is a lovely big cozy shawl, and it was so lovely to make. I really enjoyed this make, and I think it will be really lovely coming up to Christmas with the bit of glitter in it, but I won't just wear it at Christmas, I'll wear it throughout the winter. So as I say, the Criss shawl will be coming very soon. When it does, I'll post it on my Instagram so that you can see all the links, but pop over and follow Twin Set and Pearl as well. So that was my first finished object that I wanted to go over. My next one, okay, so my next finished object, both of these socks are now finished. I had shown you one of these the last time, but I now have both of them completed. So the socks is the Colourwork Cuff Club by Summerlee Knits. The idea is that you subscribe to the club. It's a 12-month club. The club is currently $13.99 or $13.99, which in the UK is roughly about £11.20, I think, sterling. But so you get the base pattern of the sock. You can obviously then substitute in the cuff that you prefer, the heel that you prefer, a different toe if you want to, but I have stuck to what's in Summerlee's pattern. I really like this heel, heel flap and gusset. That took a while. So I really like the heel flap and gusset, and then the standard toe. But each month she sends you through a Colourwork pattern, so then you can put that in. As I said the last time, I prefer a shorter leg of sock, but you can make that as long as you want it to be. The August started it, so if you join now you will get August, September's and October's. August was these flowers and the granny stripe, which I showed in episode 1. And I've done, I think, about 2 or 3 pairs of these now. I love the flower. It's really, really lovely. And this was in a Lonely Mountain Yarn colourway. Mary Claire isn't dying at the minute. She's put her shop on holiday, but she will be back. Hopefully not too far away. But her colourways are just lovely. There'll be a few more coming in some of the later podcasts. But this was a sock club that she brought out in July. So that was the August. And then I also finished off, and again you saw these the last time, but I finished off my 2 of the September. So I finished off my September, so both socks are now finished. I think I'd only a small bit of the second sock started. So the colour is You Mama. Again, Northern Ireland dyer from County Fermanagh in this turquoisey, gorgeous blue. And then the yellow is a Malton Yarns. It was a mini from a mini set that I got from Kerry. And then the blue, I think, is a Socks Yeah colour that I have used, the pale blue. So that was the September colourway. Now, in the September colourway, you got a couple of options. So you could carry this check the whole way down. She had a short sock in it. The one thing that I would say is that whenever you look at the base sock pattern, always take a look at the instructions in the cuff, the Colourwork cuff. So it's a separate document that comes out every month, because sometimes what you cast on for stitches is a little different depending on the pattern that follows. So although the basic sock is there and you could knit it just as a plain vanilla sock, when you're adding in the Colourwork, just check each month that you do have the right number of stitches, so that you don't start the stitch or start the Colourwork and realise that you need to think back and add stitches. Now, typically it's only 1 or 2, so you could add them in if you wanted, but just take a wee look at those. So those were the 3 projects that I finished since the last podcast. Obviously I had the socks started, but I really wanted to get these finished because I wanted to start the October socks as well. And all of the details are on my Ravelry page, which again, as I say, I will link below. So what else have I been working on? We will start to look at the works in progress. As I said the last time, I am not a monogamous knitter. I have quite a number of whips at any one time. What I'm going to do in the podcast is to just concentrate on the ones that I'm working on at the minute. Also, as a word of warning this week, in the whips, I have an MKAL. So I started the MKAL by Tellybean Knits. I have done quite a few of her cowl patterns, particularly her Halloween ones. So I will put a warning up whenever I go to show that one, because if you've started it and you don't want to see, or you haven't kept up, I don't want to ruin the surprise for you. And if you don't mind, continue watching. So three of the things that I'd said I was working on the last time. The first one was the Whitmore sweater by Amy Loudon. And I still have in my Minnie Mouse bag. I've got a little further, not too much, but what I did with this was to finish the yoke. And I have joined in the round and done about 1.5 inches, maybe. Why is there a hole? Oh, because I've joined another ball. I was going to say, well, I have a hole in the middle of my knitting. So this was in one of the Stylecraft yarns that I had mentioned. And it's beautiful, and it's so soft. So this is the Stylecraft Recreate. Okay, so I just went and had a look. Stylecraft Recreate. As you can see, I paid £4.50 for that one, and I didn't buy this that long ago. But the composition of this: 40% wool, 30% acrylic, 30% polyester, all recycled, and 350 meters per 100 grams. Yeah. Okay. So I've got, as you saw there, I've got the yoke done, and I started, and I've just joined a second ball. But it's lovely. It's so soft. The pattern in this is absolutely beautiful. Obviously, it's going to need blocked, but really beautiful pattern. I really like how it falls, and although I do tend to prefer a raglan jumper, this one is a full circular yoke, but it fits really lovely. It's really nice. So that's the progress that I've made on that one. Highly recommend the pattern. It's a really quick knit, and as I mentioned, now that I've got to the constant in the round, I might slow up a bit, but I try to do 1 inch of this. I try to work out when I'm knitting, and I haven't done it with this one just yet, but I try to work out how many rows are 1 inch, and then I'll put in my wee light bulb markers on the side, and I'll do 1 inch, and then I'll stop. And it means that I'm not getting as bored with the patterns, but I am keeping up with, it doesn't just sit there for 6 months before I come back to it. So I think on this one, I had worked out 6 rows were 1 inch, 5 or 6 rows. So as I say, I will continue to work on that, but that's the progress from the last time. I did the full of the last repeat, which means that you have to split for arms, start the repeat, and then go into the stocking stitch. And then when you pick up for the sleeves, you'll see that I still have my markers in there. And you do, again, you finish the repeat of the lace pattern, and then you go into stocking stitch for the rest. So really lovely. Highly recommend that particular pattern. Then something that I was working on last week were my 2 muscle bras. So one of them I've got a little bit further than the other. So this particular one, and these, I'm on calls for work. I work full time and I'm on calls. When I'm on a call, especially if I don't have my camera on or I'm not presenting, I tend to knit in the round. It may sound bizarre, but I actually concentrate better. So the last time this is again, I use on the Musselburgh, this is the wee light bulb markers. So this is indicating an inch. And again, I will do an inch and then move on to another project, especially when I'm working on small needles. But I was at this bottom one. So 1, 2, 3, 3 and a bit inches on this. Well, probably 4 actually. Probably 4 if I was to count that. And this one is about 10 rows to an inch. So a little bit more on that. And again, this is a Giddy Ant yarn in their frosted colourway. I think it was a colour, it was a club. They did a club as Giddy Ant Yarns. And as I mentioned before, they're now inspiring hand-dyed yarns. And they have a website, which I will link again below. But that was one of their clubs. And I think it's coming up beautifully there. So that's the Musselburgh. The Musselburgh took me a little bit of time just to get the sizing. So what you do, you start with your small cast on, and then the pattern says once you get to about an inch, check what your gauge is. But my gauge, this is just me, my gauge is still tighter up here than when I'm working in the round down here. So what I was finding, I'd finished the hat completely on gauge up here, but the hat was huge and I needed to then go back and go down maybe 2 sizes. So I have learned from my mistakes, but I'm saying that if you have had those problems, don't give up, because this is such a lovely hat when it's finished. And I will show you both of these. They will be FOs at some point, but yes, as I say, you can even nearly see it there. My gauge is tighter than it is down here. So just a word of warning. And then the other one that I was working on was again in a Giddy Ant colourway, and I had debated over, I hadn't quite enough of the main colour and I was going to put a rim. So I'm sure you've seen lots of Musselburghs where you can have the main bit of the hat and then the turn up in a different colour. So I really knew, and I did weigh it. Once I got to halfway, I weighed it and very quickly realised that I might have squeezed it in, but I didn't want to get that far to the end and then have to tink the whole way back to halfway. So in the end, I went with the pink that I showed last week. I think it really tones in, oh, if I could get my face out of the way but still see what I'm doing. It really fits in with some of the colours, especially in that sort of patch there. And you can see there, it's toning in quite nicely. So I did go and I had a look at what I had. This was one of the other colourways that I had thought, but I wasn't completely, I love the blue, but maybe not for that hat. And then the other one, and I didn't want it close to my, that's going to be the bit that's close to my face. The other one was this, and again, I thought that really highlighted the colours there beside it, but also wasn't quite right. And again, I didn't want it close. So I asked my husband in this instance, and I didn't expect him to pick the pink, but he did. And I'm glad that I did, because I am liking it. So this one is, as you can see, a lot bigger. Both of these hats were in the same place 2 weeks ago. So right down at the first one. So in this one, I am doing about 11 1/4 to the halfway point, and then I'm going to do, I think, about 2 3/4, 3 inches of this, and then back to the base colour. This is again a Giddy Ant yarn. I can't remember the colour of it, but I will have a look and see if I still have the ball band. And this is also a Giddy Ant yarn in the Mauve colourway. as I mentioned, I haven't managed to buy the Inspiring yarn just yet because I have such a stash of Giddy Aunt yarn. So I'm working my way through, and the Musselburgh hat is so good for those single skeins that you really like. And I now have fluff all over my nose. So I've made a bit of progress on both of those and chosen the colour that I wanted. Okay, so the next two whips you didn't see in the last podcast, they are new. One is a sock, and it's the October. Now, I literally cast this on just to see the pattern, and I'd need stitch stoppers on this before it all falls apart. So we have ghosts. Now, in the pattern, there is one repeat of the ghosts. That's not a good side to show because that's just where it's... I am going to put the ghosts in again, slightly staggered. I can't decide. I might carry them on the whole way through the foot. Let's see. So these are 2 Drops Fable yarns. The purple and the cream, I don't believe that's white. It might be white on their website. So Drops Fable. It is 75% wool, 25% polyamide, and 205 meters per 50 grams. This is colour 100, and that's the cream white colourway. And then the other one is 104, and that's the purple colourway. So, as I say, I haven't too much of that done. I do try to match my stitch markers in. And this stitch marker I've made myself. So a number of years ago, I started making jewellery and bits of beading, bookmarks and different bits and pieces. So I had lots of beads sitting over. And then I realised one day that I could make lots of stitch markers that, sadly or not, would match my knitting. So as I say, I have quite a lot of stitch markers in different colours that match my knitting. So that's the Colourwork Cuff Club by Summerlee Knits. That's the October colourway. There are 2 patterns in October. She has shared them on her website, so I'll post them at one side or other here. The ghosts and apples she has also put up for October, so you got 2. So actually August, September and October, you basically have 2 patterns for each month, which is great. And I'm really enjoying those. I knit on 2.25 Chow Goose. I had said before that I find my tension really changes at that stage. So 4.5 in the bigger needles, I don't notice as much, but definitely working in small circular, it only takes a small change to affect my tension, which is a me problem, but now that I'm aware of it, it does make it a little bit easier. So what I am on to now is my last whip, but it is the Mystery MKAL. So it's the MKAL by Tellybean Knits. I will put a picture up of her tees as to what she is doing. If you look at Tellybean Knits, she has a cowl that triangular, but again, it's one of those ones that you pull over your head and it just sits. She tends to have them quite patterned, but also seasonal. So I had done her Halloween one a couple of years ago. So I had done her cowl in one 2 years ago and really liked it. And I thought, I don't normally like mystery MKALs because I like to see what the finished object is before I start into it. But I decided to join Tellybeans this time. So as I said, if this is something that you're doing and you're not up to date, I will put bookmarks in and you can skip past it so that you don't get any teasers if you're wanting to keep that a mystery as you're doing it. What she is doing is it released on the 1st of October, and the idea is that you would get a pattern a day up until today, and then that would be it completed. So while I haven't kept up on a day-by-day basis because I really wanted to finish my Criss, I have also continued to work on it since Criss was finished. So now, as your warning, I'm going to go through what I'm using for the Tellybean MKAL 2024. And this is held in my Halloween bag, because what else would you hold a Halloween coil in? So 6 colours was recommended for this particular one. Colourway 1 and 2, and each of them had a light and a dark. So you can't get much light and dark than white, cream and black. So the white is a Drops Flora. It is cream. It is a Drops Flora. And this one is from a mini skein set from Malton Yarns. Now, I did see a teaser that she had posted from Undyed Wool website. I'm really hoping that she's starting to dye again. Let's wait and see. But that came from one of her Halloween sets last year. So it's a really lovely grey black. So they were my colours 1 and 2. Colour 3 and 4. Again, so this is 3, and that's a Drops Flora in pink. I'll check if I have the colours in here so that you know. And again, a Malton Yarns. Now, thankfully I didn't go too far across the floor. In this beautiful raspberry red. Isn't that lovely? And together, I think they work really well together. So they're my colours 1, 2, 3 and 4. And then colour 5 and 6. And this was used in another project. And 6. They're quite close, but actually quite different, which you'll see. This was again out of this same set. So these 3 came out of the mini skein set, and then this is again a Drops Flora. So I had 3 Drops Flora and 3, I have so much fluff in my nose, 3 Drops Flora and 3 hand dyed from Malton Yarns. I'll keep the mystery going a little bit longer. Let's see if I can find the colours. So Drops Flora, okay, so the cream, surprise surprise, was 01. So the Drops Flora 65% wool, 35% alpaca, and 210 meters per 50 grams. And as I say, this cream is the colourway 01. Then the pink, same Drops Flora, but the colourway is 21. And then I have this all taped up. As I say, I'd started to use it and then gave it up on the particular knit, so I ripped it back. And this is colour 29. I can't remember if you go onto the Woolwarehouse website, it does give you colours rather than just numbers, and I can't remember what this one was. But so they're the colours, and the Malton Yarns was a sock yarn, so it was 75/25. And so far, and this is going to be quite difficult to show because it's not blocked and it's on needles that aren't really big enough, but let's try. So here's what we've got so far. So you start off, day 1 was the stripes, and then this lovely pattern in the pale pink, This stitch was lovely. The deeper red, that was a really lovely stitch. And actually so was the black. It was a wee bit finicky, but it's going to be lovely, and especially when I get that blocked. Then we have hats and cats, and this is where I think this Malton Yarns colourway has really come up lovely. It's really, really nice. Moon and stars. And then I'm in this one, which is this is day 9 and day 10. So some of them, the cats was split into 2 days, and this particular one, can I show it without shoving all my needles off? And there's going to be a heart in there and like a monster's face in this bit here. So we'll show it the next time. But that's the Telly Bean Knits cowl. As I say, it'll go over my head, and then this comes down into the V, but it's really hard to see on the circular needles. But I love it. I think it's just so much fun. So much fun. And these are not colours that I would typically pick and put together, but for something to wear at Halloween over my black and my grey, I just think it's gorgeous. Really, really lovely. So Telly Bean Knits MKAL, I will link it below. Today is the last, but obviously then you can go on and get everything else, and there's loads of teasers on Instagram if you go on and have a look at people's posts. So this I'm hoping will be finished over the next couple of days. The Musselburgh hats I'll continue to work on, and then I will start to work on the Whitmore and get it to completion. But what has been catching my eye and what has been tempting me? One of these things is a recent thing that, again, I picked it up either on Instagram, or every now and again I will go on to Ravelry and I will have a look at what's hot. So I'm not sure if this came up on the Ravelry What's Hot or if it came up through Instagram. But it is, let me check. It's the Novice cardigan, and I'll put a picture in, the Novice cardigan by Petite Knit. So I have taken this notion that I would really, really like a cardigan. I have quite a short body, so I'm not sure that I'm going to suit it, but I'd really like to try. And after really enjoying this, and I like the fit of it, I'm really tempted to try the Novice cardigan. So it may or may not ever happen, but the chunky one, so there's a couple of different versions, but it's the chunky one that's catching my eye. So watch this space for that one. The other one that I have been looking at, and this one I have been looking at for maybe a year, to the point where I have the yarn, and I'm going to show you the yarn, but I haven't started it yet. But I think it's next on my list. Let's have a look. So it is the Talkeetna by Caitlin Hunter from Boylan Knitworks. It's a Colourwork yoke. Again, I'll put a picture up. It's knit from top down. And there's a little bit of colourwork at the sleeve, which again I thought was really, really lovely. It was the colours in this that caught my eye. I think I had seen it last year. This could have been published just before Rhinebeck last year. And I think she was possibly wearing it. But it was something in and around one of those big yarn shows in America, and I had seen it and I thought, I really, really want that. So what I have chosen is, again, a more economical yarn. It is still 100% wool, but it's the Drops Flora, because I don't seem to be taking as much of a reaction to it. The Drops Flora at times on Woolwarehouse can come down to £1.70 a ball, so it just makes it so economical. So from the colours that you'll see, I have chosen this, if I put it the right way up, as my main colour. So as I said, 65% wool, 35% alpaca, and this is colourway 07. So that's what I have chosen. and it's their mix one, as you'll see there, so there is quite a bit of variation in the colour. Then what I have decided on, I'll try and get these in order, I'm probably not going to be able to hold them. Okay, so they're the 5 colours that I would like to put at the top. This really deep forest colour, is that's maybe closer, is it? Yeah, that's better there. Is number 32. Quite dark, quite a forest green. And then this is more of a, there's more of like a teal coming through. That's probably a better colour representation of that one. That one is colour 23. So you can see the difference, and hopefully I'll be able to, this will be the collar, the ribbing, it's not even ribbing, and then going into this as the second colour, and then this paler green, so it's colour 16. And then into, this is the colour that I've used in the MKAL, 29. And then number 18, this beautiful deep red. So again, watch this space. The fact that I have the yarn for this, there's more chance maybe than the novice cardigan. However, it has been sitting for a year. So let's see. Hopefully I'm not the only one that gets carried away with a pattern, buys the yarn, and then finds other things in between that manages to make it onto the needles first. So that's everything in terms of finished objects, what I'm working on at the minute, what I might, or at least what's tempting me. And there's a couple of other things that I'm going to round off with today. The first one is the bits and pieces of tools that I use. So you'll have seen my socks on these blockers. And then I have another new one, which I will show you now. So these sock blockers, my husband makes for me. So he really enjoys 3D printing, and not only just the 3D printing, but the designing, and he is phenomenal. I just couldn't do it. I have a really creative mind. I love knitting, I love crafting, but in terms of the 3D space and actually understanding how to get these things from computer to the printer, my brain just struggles. So these are the sock blockers, although I don't block my socks on them. I use them more just for getting the sock into shape. I tend to steam my socks with the iron and then put them onto these. But what I really like with these, this one isn't going to work for me, is that they come apart. So this particular one is 37 to 38, which is the European size, which is a size UK 4 to 5. And then I have other sizes. So I have the 39 to 40 and the 45 to 46. So I can just pop them in, and then I have a different size. So I'm absolutely loving these. But then this week he came in and he'd got his laser machine up and running again, and I got this. Isn't this cool? So he had put little balls of yarn cutouts, and then my logo at the top, and a wee hanger, and I love these. Absolutely brilliant. So they're my sock blockers, but that doesn't stop there. We also 3D printed your ball winder for when you're out and about. So if I'll get my muscle bra, and then I made these wee keyrings to keyring on the top, which I can then put on my wrist. Aren't they brilliant? And again, just it saves the ball rolling all over the floor, but I absolutely love these. So they're my little makes that my husband helps encourage my knitting habit. But I wouldn't be without them. The sock blockers in particular, and having those different sizes, because as I mentioned before, I do knit for quite a few people in the family with different foot sizes, so they are really, really useful. But I really, like, when I seen this one this week with my Angela Makes on it, I thought it was just fab. Really, really cool. So they're the bits and pieces that I use really regularly. I have a few other bits and pieces which I'll show you as the podcast goes on, but I just thought I'd share those because I am holding up the sock blockers all the time. But yeah, as I say, these are just lovely and so practical, being able to change the toes. I also bought a few things this week, so I want to share those with you. I don't typically buy a lot, but there was a couple of things that caught my eye that I just couldn't resist. One was Crafty Valentine, which is Tracy from the Will and Wishes podcast, and she had made a couple of project bags. Now, as I said, I typically make my own project bags, but I could not resist this one. Isn't this just fab? It is absolutely perfect. And the inside is the bright green, and there's a wee hook inside it to hold all your notions and bits and pieces. And it's beautiful. And her wee Crafty Valentine on the side. So absolutely beautiful. I bought this myself. It wasn't sent or anything else, but I just love the fabric. I have followed Jamie for quite a while. I have quite a few of her patterns, and I have also done a couple of test knits for Jamie, but I got myself the Doodle Knit directory. Again, I haven't started anything. I don't think I need any more whips, but this is absolutely brilliant. So many different ideas, so many basic patterns at the back. So you have your sock pattern, your coil pattern, your infinity scarf, fingerless mitts, which I really want to try. And I probably will try those first because I have enough coils and shawls. What else has she in here? A hat. And I believe she is releasing a sweater pattern soon. I think it's in testing at the minute. But again, really, really worthwhile, the Doodle Knit directory. And then the only other thing that I treated myself to this week, last week, was a Woolwarehouse. Who doesn't know these bags? A Woolwarehouse haul. So I had a request for black socks. So I went on and got the Drops Fable in black. But then I got a couple of other colours. So I got the bright orange, 119, the mustard, 111. I got a green, and my intention for this is Christmas socks with the red. So 106 and 112, and I have creams in that here. And then I saw on their website that the Stylecraft natural organic cotton had been reduced. Now, what was it reduced to? Natural organic cotton. This is in the papaya colorway 7178, 100% organic cotton, and 105 meters to 50 grams, so DK weight. I got 8 of these and it was £11.92. I'm not going to try and do the maths on that, but it's not very expensive. And again, I've done a couple of the Tolsta tees in cotton for this summer, but I really like pink, so I got these to try so that I have a t-shirt for next year also. So that's the Naturals Organic Cotton from Stylecraft, and as I say, Woolwarehouse had a bit of a reduction on those, so I wanted to treat myself. Okay, so that is definitely me finished now. So I thank you again so much for watching and subscribing. All I would ask is that if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel so that you catch up on the next few podcasts. I'm hoping that I will get into a better rhythm as I go on, and that I will continue to show you what's tempting me, which will in turn hopefully tempt you. And as I said, it will be typically knitting heavy, but there will also be crochet and a few other bits and pieces. But thank you, and I will see you very soon. Bye.